You are listening to ArtScene, the podcast, where we share authentic stories about talented teachers who turn moments into movements. This is their art, and these are their stories. Let's welcome Alice Tickler, Queen Anne's County Public Schools Teacher of the Year.
Hey,
welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. And we're welcoming Alice into my new Cannon Street art studio as we film the very first episode here on location, joined by Ray and QACTV, capturing the conversation. So, Alice, when we hear the word arts, we usually think of painting, theater, music, dance. Mm-hmm. But honestly, some of the greatest artists that I've ever met are teachers like yourself. Over the course of my career, I've met some truly inspiring ones, the John Keatings, the Jaime Escalantes, the Aaron Gruels of the world, and they all have something very magical in common. They know instinctively how to read a child's story and script confidence onto those blank pages. And it's a human connection. It's helping someone discover their voice. And when I think back to childhood, while there's art, there's music, there's literacy as one of those first forms of art that many of us ever experience. So with that said, let's talk about the child who changed you.
Okay.
I remember you sharing that reading units, they were not shaped first by curriculum or by training, but by your son, Jake, and his experience in school. Can you take us back to that moment? And you taught him. You taught both your children.
I did. I had the privilege of being able to teach both of my kids. And not everybody can say that, but I did. Taught my daughter first, and it went really well. My son comes into first grade, and I taught both of them because teaching is my gift. That's what I had to give to them. Yeah. So Jake, he struggled. He struggled reading, and he struggled with his writing. He struggled with his fine motor. And I thought, well, perfect. He's with me. I can help him.
Right.
But I couldn't. I could not figure out how to help him. And he struggled all through the year. And I felt helpless. I thought, here I am, a teacher. This is supposed to be my gift, and I can't help him. Why is he struggling? Sent him on to second grade, continued to struggle, and his second grade teacher said, we're going to have to retain him. He is just not ready to go to third grade.
So you're teaching your children, and your own son's held back in school after.
Yeah, and I thought, oh my gosh. So you're embarrassed, you're helpless, you're like, I have failed him. I mean, it just was, and I looked everywhere. I thought, what can I do to help him? And I just, I'm getting my master's degree. I've got all this background, but I couldn't help him. And I couldn't figure out why. I did everything I thought I was supposed to do.
Was that the moment where teaching became very personal in a different way for you? With all the rest of your kids, when you couldn't help your own, then did you start to recognize even more things in the other children around you?
Yeah.
How did that happen?
When you become a parent, you have your children, you start to see your children in the kids you
Absolutely.
teach. You see them. And I knew Jake struggled, and I recognized, so I could see that in other kids. You could see their handwriting difficulties, the way they struggled, and he was, go to the bathroom or be silly just to get out of it.
Absolutely.
And I thought, I know what you're doing. Seen this before. So you do start to see your own children, and you recognize it a lot faster.
So how much of teaching do you believe is emotional intuition?
Oh my gosh, all of it. You don't realize it at first. In the beginning, when you're a new teacher, there's so much to think about. But as you become comfortable, and as you really see that classroom as your home and your space and your calling, you really start to bring that emotion in there. And you look at kids and you're like, you could be mine.
Right.
How can I help you? And any one of those kids could be mine. They're somebody's. And so you do everything you can to help them, and it hurts when you can't.
Well, and I've often said that information without emotion is rarely retained. And I think that it's also, how am I flipping that switch?
That's when I got letters trained.
Okay.
So we're we're going through COVID. Everybody's online. That's when parents really started to see, because they saw their kids online with their teachers.
Yeah.
And they could hear their kids struggling. And they're like, wait a second, I thought they knew how to read. What's going on? And the podcast Sold a Story came out. So all of a sudden, there's this huge spotlight on reading. Why can't kids read? Right. And that's when I started listening to that podcast, reading a little bit more, and heard about letters training. That was 10 years after I had Jake.
So what did you do in that meantime to help him? How did he get help?
So we tried, and we really relied on classroom teachers. We did what we could at home, but I knew he continued to struggle, and I saw holes where he would accommodate and try and do things or listen to them on tape. And he ended up with an IEP to help him so he could get audio, but lots of kids could do that. He could text to speech. He could use any of those.
Right. So you felt like most of our parents out there,
exactly,
helpless to try to change your own child's life who's struggling. I think that's so powerful. You speak so passionately about structured literacy and the science of reading, but there's also something incredibly creative about the way you describe teaching children. Where do you think science and artistry kind of meet for you in the classroom?
So I think understanding exactly how that brain works. How does that brain read? That's when it clicked for me. So, the brain is responsible for certain things. When there's a crossover, there's a little bit more of a remembrance.
Okay.
And so understanding that technical piece of how the brain reads, but also bringing in maybe some drawing or some music with it so that it all connects. And you remember faster. You remember longer.
There's something to that cross connection between the language arts and creativity.
Well, it's funny, too, because handwriting took a back seat for a long time. We didn't teach handwriting for a long time. Then they realized kids remember the formation when they're writing those letters. So now it's back.
What do you think the role of storytelling plays in literacy?
Listening to stories. I think that builds vocabulary, builds comprehension, brings things to kids that they're not exposed to. Storytelling, for me, is the story of how I struggled teaching my own child, had this journey where I finally figured out how I could have helped him, and so now I can help other kids. So storytelling can be personal, but it can also be for the kids and to bring them places they won't maybe get to go, or maybe inspire them to go there.
I love that. I agree. I think that, one thing I've been talking a lot about through my studio here, these experiences, is that creativity isn't just painting on a canvas. It's problem solving. It's improvisation. It's reading the room. And great teachers are doing that like yourself every day. Let's revisit that Guatemala story.
Yeah, sure. So this was good 2 years after that training. I had gotten the letters training, gotten the letters facilitator training, gotten some sound wall training, which also changed because that taught me a lot about the differences in Spanish and English phonology. Yeah. So I get this little girl. She comes in, doesn't speak any English. She comes to this country, no friends. She's scared. And about a month and a half later, she's not in class. I'm like, where is she? Where is she? And they were forced to leave the country. 2 months later, they're back. So now she's starting over. She had started to make some friends. She started to learn our routines. And now she's back. She's got to figure it all out. So I used what I learned already. I used what I knew about the differences in English and Spanish phonology, but then I immersed myself in webinars and anything I could find to help me and started really helping her code switch. So as we're learning together.
What's code switch?
So code switch. So she's got this English and she's got this Spanish, and that is a hefty load for our multilingual students to carry because they're switching back and forth between English and Spanish.
Okay.
Spanish, their home language, also learning English, but so I had to kind of model that. So as we're going through the sounds, because we do the sound review every day. So we go, okay, so we've got that letter I up there. And the kids all know. If I hold up 2 fingers, it makes the I and the I sound. I'm like, yeah, and what other sound does it make in Spanish? And she says, E. And the kids are like, what? So now the kids are learning the sounds of some of the vowels that are different. And so we go through some of those sounds. So in English it's this, in Spanish it's this. So we kind of model that.
Okay.
And she really started to pick up on those. because there's a difference in phonology. So Spanish speaking people have 22 phonemes. We have 44. So you have to build that in. The more she was in class, the more she learned. And then 2 additional students came. They were in 3rd grade though. And I said to Susan Walmer, I was like, this is really working for her. In the meantime, I get another student from Turkey. And I said, this is really working. I said, why don't we bring those 3rd graders and let's bring them all together in the morning, do this together. And 2 years later, she's in 4th grade now. She's on the morning announcements. She comes by and says good morning to me. She's helping the little pre-K students that are new.
That's amazing.
It's crazy. She's reading decodables. I'm like, man.
So what did that student teach you?
We can talk about this now. We can talk about it later. But kids along the way, they inspire me so much. And when she came and I didn't know exactly what to do, I thought, I'm going to figure it out. And I'm going to figure out a way to help you because you are going to learn how to read. The reading brain's the reading brain, whether it's Spanish or English, and you are going to learn how to read. And so she inspired me to learn more. And then when this student from Turkey came, I tried the same way to learn. Thankfully, the phonology wasn't too much different. I don't speak Spanish. I do not speak Turkish, but I can tell you the difference in phonology. And then seeing them 2 years later, it didn't happen right away because not all of your successes are boom in the moment.
Was there a breakthrough moment?
You could see her really starting to relax in class, but because she came and she left and she came back, there was almost a fear. Maybe a fear that she would leave again.
Right.
Maybe
how much time do I have to actually see this through?
So the breakthrough moment there was that by the end of the year, she's like, I love you, Miss Tickler. And, that was when she was leaving. And I thought, for her to say that and then to see her 2 years later making so much growth, it just warms my heart.
Well, what stood out to me about that story is also when we were talking privately and you shared that you don't know when they're coming, what they're coming to you with, or when they might be going. So you really have to meet them where they are and find ways to bridge those gaps and just refuse to give up on the possibility that a child can succeed, not knowing how much time you even have with them to make that happen. Those breakthrough moments, they don't happen accidentally, though. That's your work that you're pouring into them.
It's intentional, but it's funny. For a long time, when you first start teaching, you want kids to come to you.
Yeah.
And at some point you realize that you have to meet them where they are.
Yes.
And they will find so much more success.
That's very powerful. It's very important for everybody to understand that. I think every child has that unique lens where we have to kind of meet them where they are.
Yeah.
Let's shift gears a little bit to leadership and trust. So you described morphology PD session that you had right after Memorial Day where teachers who didn't even want letters training, they suddenly signed up because they heard you were doing the training. That's very culture shifting. Why did they sign up for you? And what did that moment mean to you?
So I had this letters facilitator training and along comes a book. And I said to Susan, I was like, this would be a great book. She goes, funny, I got the same book. And I was like, I think this would be a great book study. So we do all that. We get up to the morphology piece, which is a piece that you really need to start incorporating in 3rd and 4th grade.
And what is morphology for
so
everybody
morphology,
who's listening?
Yeah, so
what are they talking about? Morphology.
So our language is morphophonemic, which means phonemic is based on sounds, but the morphology is also the meaning of the language. So your prefixes, your suffixes, the way words are divided into syllables, all of that. And learning that takes kids to that next level. So I said to Susan, look, it's the last chapter. It'd be great if we could bring 3rd and 4th in. She said, perfect. She gives me the date. It's like the day after Memorial Day. I'm like, no one's going to listen. So I was like, all right.
They love that day, right?
I said, can they come in my room? Because at least I'm like at a comfort level, right? So they all come in my room, the entire school, they're in there. I'm like drenched in sweat. I'm going through this. You're looking out there like, God, I hope they like this.
Hope they like
Something here. And we finished. And I remember one of the teachers was like, that was the most interesting professional development I've ever had in my life. Oh my God. I was like, really? Really? I mean, I can dry the sweat off now, right? Yeah. Like, all right, I made an impact.
So what do you think makes teachers trust another teacher?
There is something to be said to get professional development from another teacher, boots on the ground, in the trenches, right next to you, doing what you're doing every day, saying to you, this is what I do. Not just this is the theory and it should work, but this is the theory, this is how I use it, and this is what I see.
Well, and I think that that's so powerful when you are able to be afforded to go off and get these trainings and bring it back. For me, overseeing Title IV grants, I've been very fortunate to be able to send teachers to conferences in music, in theater, in the visual arts. And when they attend national conferences and they're getting some of the best presenters in the nation, they get to sit in on those sessions and then bring it back to their peers. That's
huge.
Yeah, it's so amazing. I love that.
It is. I think a lot of teachers learn to find that support on their own. I'm very lucky to work in an incredibly supportive, almost family staff.
Yeah. I always look forward to August PD, especially when I can bring everybody together in the same room, in the same space, and we get to have some fun together, and we get to exchange some ideas.
Right?
It's so good. Yeah, it's so good. It is like the greatest day of the year. And I will say, for me, art, it kind of changed my life because it did give me a language for things I didn't know how to say at the time. And now as a supervisor, I'm trying to create spaces where other people can discover what it is that they might want to try. Sometimes it's providing a space where people feel safe enough to take a risk and try something. So let's shift gears. And there was a question in your Teacher of the Year packet, and it asked how, and this is a tough question, Alice, it asked how community connections dissolve classroom walls. And this was that question where I asked you when we were sitting down and writing, helping you with your Teacher of the Year packet, I said, go there, and I believe that turned into one of your most powerful pieces. So you started it out with February 15th, 2026.
Yes.
So this is the day after Valentine's Day. And this is the day after I visited this space and signed a lease for the first time.
Oh, wow.
I was up here on Valentine's Day. And so that day after, I mean, it became life-changing for you forever.
It did.
What happened on that day?
Okay. So yeah, February 15th, my son, Jake, 19 years old, was killed in a car accident at the end of my street. He left to run into work, and he was actually, like, he and his sister were very close. And his sister called me and said, Mom, I think Jake was in a car accident. I was like, he just left 2 minutes ago. There's no way. And everyone's like, are you okay? Are you okay? And someone said, he's not okay. And that's when she called me. I was like, he just left. There's no way. So I get in the car, I drive to the end of the road, a couple of blocks, and I see the back of his car. And it's across the street. And I thought, okay, he must have been run off the road. And I get around to the front, and he was pushed all the way over to the passenger side. No glass in any of the front windows. And I know now in that moment he was gone, but they tried for 45 minutes to bring him. But he was gone. But I was surrounded by my community. When I got down there, the first responders, I knew some of them from resource officers in the school, community members. You know, there was a woman that stayed right by my side the entire time. I'll never forget Christy Grinder standing there with me the entire time. And no one left me. No one.
Do you want to read some of what you wrote? Because I thought it was so beautiful.
I said I was not alone. The community I live in, families, colleagues, friends, even strangers, surrounded me with a level of support I had never experienced before. They stood beside me at the scene. They walked me through the days that followed, and they continued to hold me up in ways that I cannot put into words. And it was in those moments that the walls between school and home and community disappeared, and everything became one. And in the days and the weeks that passed afterwards, people started to share stories about Jake. And some of them I'd never heard before. And they told me about how he made other people feel seen. And parents would tell me, you know, my daughter, she was so nervous in church, but he made her feel safe. He made her feel okay. And friends of his that said, you know, I was struggling, but Jake helped me. He walked me through those. And they continued to share those stories with me. And I had never felt so surrounded and so dependent on my community than I did in those moments.
And you shared that picture of him with me when we were working on this. And that was so beautiful, seeing him consoling a child who had just lost their father.
Yeah, he lost his own father when he was in the 5th grade. And he went to a grief camp. Camp Nudon, he and his sister both. And it made a huge difference in their lives. So he then started to volunteer. Wow. And because he had those feelings, he was able to connect with other kids just
Absolutely,
like him.
Yeah.
And that's my favorite picture. He's holding a child, and this child is just clinging to him. And they both lost their father, different points in their lives. But Jake knew exactly what he felt. And that's the thing about Jake. He knew exactly what other people felt because he struggled with reading. He struggled sometimes making friends. He struggled with loss. And he could see that in other people. And
Absolutely.
He didn't want them to feel that. He wanted them to feel seen. He wanted them to feel cared for. And he lived his life like that.
It's so beautiful. And I think that's a gift that teachers impart on the children that they're teaching as well. I know in the classroom, when I can recognize in the eyes of a child, it's like seeing yourself. And you're like, oh, I recognize you. I want to help you because I know where you are. You may not tell me where you are, but I know where you are. And I want to help you through. I also believe that it's a legacy that is going to live on with you through these stories. And I mean, how wild is it that you became so invested in learning the art of teaching children how to read because of him?
Yeah. And
now his message is also out there for everyone forever.
Yeah. The one thing we realized, though, and we didn't realize how much Jake inspired other people. So my husband, Matt, and I, we were kind of talking one night about people that inspired us or how we inspired other people. And I'm like, I wonder if I inspire anyone. And he said, well, you know, you've had people say to you, I'd like to learn more based on what they heard from you. So I think you do. And then I started thinking about, well, who inspires me? And you have your, what you call professional crushes, right? You know, there's certain people you listen to. You're like, I love listening to this person, whatever. But I think, and I told you this, I said, we hear stories all the time. Oh, I had this teacher. She was fantastic. She inspired me to do this. And you always hear teachers inspiring people to rise up out of nowhere.
Yes.
But I don't think we've ever heard a story about a child inspiring a teacher. But that is what happens to me every day. Children inspire me. And instead of seeing it as a roadblock or a challenge, I see it as an invitation to figure them out.
Yes.
And Jake inspired me. And I can't tell him. I can tell him, I can talk to him, and I talk to him all the time. But it made me think, have I told that little girl from Guatemala how she inspired me to learn more? I need to.
Yeah.
I need to tell these kids, you know what? You are making me a better person. You are inspiring me.
That's one of the most beautiful messages that I hope people will take away from this, and especially your teacher family that's listening and recognizing that there's children around them that they're being is equally inspired, and they are inspiring you. So make sure you let them know.
Yeah. And it's quiet. You don't realize it. But
tomorrow's never
like,
promised to anyone,
Yeah.
so it's very important.
Yeah.
What do you notice now? Is it that you notice now that maybe you missed before? That gratitude piece of letting someone know, letting a child know exactly where they are in your life in that way?
Yeah, I think I've learned to really notice who is inspiring me and remember to thank them.
Okay.
Jake did not hear any of those stories. Jake maybe he knew.
Yeah.
Maybe he knew. Maybe they said to him, "Thanks, bud. Thanks, you helped me." But did he hear all of those stories? I wonder. So it reminds me to thank people and to tell them in the moment, because tomorrow's not promised. But it just helps me remember the importance of community, because if I had not been surrounded by my community, and still am, and the tributes that continue to pour out. It was the lacrosse team banquet last night, had an award for a kid that does the little things. You know, his last name was Little, and awards that are given in his name and his honor, and trees that are donated, and people that say, like, he really made an impact. I want to do this for him and in his name, so that he's not forgotten, and people know, live like him, thank people, look for the beauty in life.
It's beautiful. It's emotional, just thinking about it. So, advocacy and growth. You said your advocacy journey started with a single book study, and looking back now, what would you tell the version of yourself leading that first session?
If I could go back and say, all right, I know you're getting ready to do a book study, and it's only pre-KK and 1. It's only a portion of the school. But guess what? This is going to lead to something more. This is going to lead to another book study. This is going to lead to you being trained to train other people. Because I had a choice. I could take all that training and I could say, I'm just going to help my little group right here, right? But I started thinking, there's more Jakes out there. They're not just in my room. If I can help other teachers to help their classes, and it expands, right? It's like that that little ripple effect. And then it's exponential. And then maybe they want to
grow.
Right. And maybe they want to know more and get trained.
Well, let's do some rapid fire moments before we close things out. Favorite children's book?
The Mitten by Jan Brett.
One student moment that you'll never forget. Is there any that we haven't mentioned?
When I taught Jake, there was a little boy, and when he left, he said, "I love you." And Jake said, "That is my mom. You can't love her."
Very protective of
right.
mom.
He's like, "You can't love her. That is my mom."
That's hilarious. One teacher who has shaped you, who would that be?
My second grade teacher was the best storyteller. She could read a story and it just roped everybody in. And I loved listening to her. And I remember thinking, I want to be able to tell a story and read a book the way Mrs. McNew can.
Okay. One song that would describe teaching?
Probably What a Wonderful Life. What a Wonderful World. I listen to that, and if you do what you love and you can call it work, it's a wonderful world.
And what would your students say your classroom feels like?
I think they'd say it feels like home.
That's beautiful. What would Jake say about his mom as a teacher?
I found out I was a Teacher of the Year finalist a week before the accident, and he said to me, "I'm so proud of you." And he was so excited. And he was funny. He was even like, "Now you got to get a sports car, because your Teacher of the Year gets a car." I said, "Jake, I'm a finalist."
A sports car.
He's like, "Mom, you're going to win. Trust." He's like, "I think you will."
And you did. And I hope you win it all. I hope you go to the state and win it all. It is a beautiful journey you're about to undertake. And I will say, what strikes me most about your story is your work. It reminds us that teaching, for all of our teachers out there, it's about connection, and it's about helping people believe in themselves, script that confidence onto their blank pages. And honestly, that may be the greatest art form of all, what you're giving back to those kids. So thank you for all you do. And
well, thank you.
And I hope you win it big at the state level.
Thank you.
But thank you for coming on ArtScene, the podcast. Is there anything else that I missed that you'd like to share before we close?
I hope teachers remember to thank a student. Thank a student. Find a student this year that has challenged you, inspired you to learn more, to know better, to do better, and thank them.
And I hope they'll listen to this and they'll go out there and they'll thank them when they hear this.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thank you, Alice.